I've had a chance to do service in Masonic temples when I was on a mission for my church. When you walk into any Masonic temple, for the most part, there's two things that you'll see when you walk in. There's a rough Ashlar and there's a smooth Ashlar. So what is an Ashlar? I didn't know what this was ahead of time, but Ashlar is basically, it's a rock, right? And so when you walk in on the left-hand side, typically, you'll see this rock and it's kind of like, it's beat up and it's a traditional rock, right? That's been out there, it's all chipped up, it's everything. On the right-hand side, you'll have a smooth Ashlar stone, which is basically, it's squared out and it's just perfectly cleaned up. It's perfect and it symbolizes the beginning as we come in and we're rough. We're struggling, we're trying to figure things out. And as you progress through life, all those little edges that get shaved off till eventually you are a smooth Ashlar stone, meaning you've kind of cleaned off all those things, you become more and more perfected. And so it's a beautiful symbolism, I think, of like we start our life as this rough Ashlar, and by going through the trials, the temptations, the learning, the training, like all the stuff we do to become more perfect, to become someone who has figured things out, eventually we can become that smooth Ashlar. Today I'm going to show you guys the biggest book that I own. This thing is literally, 2 or 3 feet tall. It's called The Secret Teaching of All Ages. This is by a guy named Manly P. Hall, who was a 33-degree Mason. And it's fascinating because he was a Mason, but also he was in the personal development, like New Thought movement. And so why I love Manly P. Hall, I love his work, and I love this book specifically is because taking a lot of these principles that Masons use and showing how they also apply to personal development and success and a whole bunch of things like that. And so I paid a whopping $743.27 for this book. Initially, I'm not gonna lie, I bought it because it was the biggest book that I've ever seen, and I just thought I have to have this on my shelf. And now I have to build a custom shelf just to fit it. So it became a lot more expensive than that when you look at adding in the shelf costs to putting this book out for people to actually see. So there you go, Secret of All the Ages. All right, now if you're not familiar with what a Mason is yet, and again, there's a lot of controversy, I'm sure in the comments, some of you guys are gonna be blowing me up about Masons are evil and it's bad, and other people like love it, and there's a whole bunch of beliefs in between. The Masons, if you look at them, they are a fraternal order for men. It's not a religion. They do recommend that people have a religion when they become Masons, and then Masons, as you go through it, there's different levels and different degrees. And so the top level, when you go through all the Masonic teachings and rituals and everything, by the time you get to the top, you become a 33-degree Mason. So that's kind of the top. You unraveled and understand all this stuff. Now, I'm not a Mason at this point in my life. Not saying I wouldn't be. In fact, I'm curious what you guys think. Should I go into it? I do respect them for so many different reasons. Probably don't understand all the things about the Masonic lodges and temples and all that kind of stuff. But what I do understand is that the people I know who are Masons, same thing with Manly P. Hall, like look at it as like more of a personal development program. Now, I haven't had a chance to read this entire book yet, mostly because it's insanely big and this isn't like reading 40 or 50 books, but I was flipping through and just trying to find something inside here that I could use that would be beneficial for me to understand, like how could I apply some of Manly P. Hall's teachings they teach as a Masons in my personal life. And one of the things that I found was so powerful, I wrote it down. It's called the VITROL method. And the acronym VITROL stands for Vista Interia Terra Ratification Inventri Aculeum Lepiternum, is explore inwardly through purification and discover the hidden stone. Okay, it's a call for us to embark on our hidden quest, our hidden mission, to figure out what are the things in my life that I need to change? What are the things in my life that aren't perfect that I need to make better? But I had a teacher one time that taught me something that was one of the most powerful lessons. He said, look, Russell, you're probably not going to become perfect in this lifetime. It's hard, but he said, you can pick a principle, pick something, and you can eventually become perfect at that thing. So he's like, pick something. For me at the time, I was struggling with the law of tithing, like paying 10% of my income. That seems insane, right? He said, okay, if you go and you decide today, I'm gonna become perfect at paying my tithing. I'm gonna pay 10% of my income for the rest of my life. I do that. He's like, you can learn that principle and you can start doing it. He's like, you can become perfect at tithing. If you do it every single time, like you're perfect at it. And now you're perfect in that one thing. And he's like, now pick another principle. What's another principle you want? And I was like, I was like, I want to stop drinking caffeine. He's like, okay, figure out how to stop drinking caffeine. He's like, and eventually you'll figure it out and you'll become perfect in that one thing. He's like, what happens is throughout your life, as you keep doing these things over and over, eventually you can become perfect. Now, I don't think most of us or any of us are going to get perfect in this life, but I think that's really the principle here, right? Explore inwardly through purification and discover the hidden stones, right? It's embarking on this inner quest of enlightenment and transformation. And so I think about that for us. Like that's what personal development's about. That's what Christianity is about. It's what most faiths, most religions are all about, is coming back and like, how do we find the things that aren't the way we want in our lives? How do we change those things? How do we become a better version, a more perfected version of ourselves over time? And the next thing I started looking at is inside of my business, right? And I think about this, again, I'm obsessed with funnels, obviously. But you think about a funnel, like somebody's coming in and they're going through the process, like there's things that are breaking, things that aren't working, right? Again, the very first time you build any kind of sales process, like it's like that rough Ashlar where it's just kind of broken. And I remember vividly when I first got into Dan Kennedy world, I remember I was trying to think like, what am I going to learn from this old guy who's a little bit grumpy? He doesn't know digital marketing. He's talking to business owners that are like chiropractors and dentists, stuff like that. And I remember I was very skeptical. And I was listening to one of my very first trainings from Dan Kennedy, and this is where I got it. In the training he's talking about, he's like, a lot of people come to me because they want to figure out, how do I get more, like, I want you to write an advertising campaign to get more leads in my business. And Dan's like, okay, I'll do that for you. And he, gets the first check written to him, and he comes back, he's like, I'm not going to do any ads for these guys. People are like, well, why not? He's like, that's not what's broken in their business. He's like, what's broken is everything else. And so what Dan would do then is after they hire him, he would go and he would literally pick up the phone, look at the ad on the yellow pages, dial the phone number and see what would happen. And he would dial the phone number, and like 9 times out of 10, nobody answered, right? So he'd leave a message. And then 9 times out of 10 of those people never called back. But every once in a while, someone would call back, right? When they did call back, he's like, listen, like, did the person have a sales script? They know what they were doing. And he started looking at that. And then after he'd book an appointment, he'd go through the entire sales process. And he said what he found out is like people were getting enough traffic and leads, but the entire process was broken along the way. The front desk girl, or whoever was running the front desk, wasn't answering the phones. So he's like, step number 1, I came into building a process where you have to answer the calls in 3 phone calls or less. And they said, well, what happens like during our lunch hour? No one's here to answer the calls. The 2 people on the front desk would like both go to lunch together. He said, no, you don't get to go to lunch together. You have to offset. Someone always has to be here during business hours to answer the call. So that was the first step, is making sure that someone always answered the call. And all of a sudden you went from 9 times out of 10 no one answered to 100% of the time, right? Right there alone, you just 10x your revenue, right? And the next thing was like, he realized that the person didn't have a script. So the person picked up the phone, hello, how are you doing? And didn't know what to say, didn't know how to direct somebody towards a sale. So he wrote a very simple sales script, trained the front desk people. When the phone call happens, this is exactly what you need to say in the order you need to say it, right? And built a script. And then from there, it's like, hey, now when someone shows up, what's the process, right? How do you take that person? What's the process you take them through? How do you make them feel excited? How do you connect with them? Give them the first service. And from there, how do you upsell the next service? And he would just tweak all these little things along the way. And then from there, he would run the exact same ads we're already running, and their business would 10, 20, 30x, right? And that was like Dan's big secret. And that was the very first time, because back then, funnels weren't a thing. I wasn't studying funnels, but I realized that the process I had when somebody would come into my world was broken, right? And so I was like, well, how do we start fixing this? And that's where my obsession with funnels began, right? The same way you do when you're trying to figure out like how to become a better person, right? You're looking at each individual principle, like how do I fix this principle in life? How do I fix this principle? With sales funnels, it's the exact same thing, right? I look at every single piece. I look at the ad. I look at the landing page, I look at the emails, I look at the text message, I look at the and I just like geek out on that entire process. It's funny how like these little things can have a huge impact. It's the same simple Masonic principle that can work in your life, it can work in your business. And that's from like 1 page in this book. I cannot wait to devour every single page in literally basically an encyclopedia in this one book. Page CCIV. So that's how many pages are in this book inside of my 1,400 pages. But the cool thing about this book is that I'm excited is that literally the secret teaching of all the ages, everything I'd ever want is all found inside of this one book by Manly P. Hall, a 33-degree Master Mason.
CCIV represents 204.
Way off. My number was way off. She's like, that's not 2,000, that's 200. Anyway, down a link down below, you click on the description, we'll take you over to a page and give you guys a PDF with all of my notes on what are the Masonic teachings that can relate back to personal development or to your business development. It'll save you some time from reading this entire 2.5 foot tall book and give you guys direct access to the actual things that you can apply from Masonic teachings into your personal life. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys on the next one.